There is another detail, though, which is there was one last thing they snuck into this press release. By the way, Monty, I'll tell you this right now. This isn't an article. You don't do an article, the state of game. These are like all separate news posts, mate. Like seeds are changing, venues changing, and then they slipped this last one in there. How is this not its own news post? That they're going to do their own, essentially like Hall of Fame. They're going to do a Hall of Legends for League of Legends, right? Or if there's anyone I don't trust to make a Hall of Fame about their own esport, it's easily Riot Games. They would be number one on the list. Like this, there's no way this is going to be done properly. It's going to be like, first ballot, double lift. Like, you know what I mean? It's going to be ridiculous and coarse and all. Meanwhile, like the joke is like Mad Life will be waiting like 10 years to get inducted. You know what I mean? Like,
I just can't wait, Thorin, for Bjergsen and Doublelift to be introduced to this, in spite of the fact that, look, you could make an argument that Doublelift was like a top 380 carry in the world in 2011, 2012. Okay. Yeah. So like, I'm kind of with you, sort of, a little bit on that one. There was never a point in time where Bjergsen during his career was a top 10 mid laner in the world.
No. I mean, I know fans will say he was, but that's because you don't know how deep like China and Korea were, guys. Come on, there's no way he was.
You just wait until Dyrus gets in, because everybody cried when he retired. Like, I mean, this can't be real. Also, they don't announce any details. Like, are they just going to induct Faker first, even though he's still playing? Normally, you would wait till somebody retires.
Yeah, that is the nightmare. Obviously, if people don't know, that already causes normal Hall of Fame's problems. Is unless you're recruiting people from the 2000s, most people are still active in some context. They're a coach or a commentator or something. So I know, I agree on that one. But my question to you, since you invoked the name, mate, you mentioned it. What do you think, of all the fucking just cavalcade of comedy errors that League of Legends and TSM has been, to find out in 2024 that Dyrus just didn't get any salary? It's like, the one thing, Monty, they gaslit us on for 10 years was that the org takes care of the players really well and just gives you, like, amenities, money. Yeah, no shit, because the joke is they're giving Dyrus complimentary donuts because they don't pay him his fucking salary. Like, what are we doing here? Dyrus, with that money, you can just buy all the stuff you want, mate. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
I will say he definitely got paid money when Riot started doing the team stipends and LCS. He would have been at least making 25K.
No, Monty. I actually DM'd him about exactly that topic and said, you are just forgetting about the stipend. And he essentially told me, like, I just never paid attention to that. So here's the problem. I will say this, Monty. It's possible Dyrus just didn't notice and just didn't, like he was making a lot from streaming. Maybe he didn't see that like 25K was part of the payment.
Right.
But it's also plausible based on what he said. Maybe they didn't pay him. I mean, the problem with that is this, Monty. I said this on Side Select. As far as I know, with what that money was assigned for, it would essentially be some sort of fraud / potentially theft if TSM did keep that money.
Yes.
So I would hope it's just that Dyrus was silly and didn't keep track, just didn't bother asking and they just paid him in his account or something. I hope that's the case. Because as you say, people forget in the early years, the stipend was the main salary for some teams.
Yeah, it would be very surprising.
And obviously, by the way, you can speak to this. Obviously, when you were in Renegades, they used to send you the stipend to send to the players, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was included in their contract. We obviously paid them more than the league minimum, so we got that money, but they made more money than the minimum of the stipend. So it was kind of a pass through. But yes, that absolutely did happen. I mean, hilariously, part of one of the reasons why they banned me was because they said there was some sort of like financial tomfoolery because they sent my stipend check to Team Impulse, and so I didn't get it, so I couldn't pay my players on time, and then when I got it, I paid my players. You know what I mean? So they then used that as some sort of evidence that I was doing illegal trades with TDK. And then when I pointed out to them that they didn't send me the money, they sent it to the wrong fucking address. Like, anyway, whatever. I can't handle Riot. So in any case, like, I think that is crazy. And honestly, in the Dyrus case, what's even more perplexing is the fan reaction, because what I saw from fans, Thorin, was people saying
all defending like, TSM and everything. Yeah, exactly.
What they were saying, like, oh, well, at least he got 100% of his stream revenue, as if it's normal for orgs to take a percentage of their professional players' streams. That's not normal, guys. As far as I never took a percentage of any of my players' streams. I don't know orgs that did that. Do you know of any orgs that did that?
No. I mean, I'm at this point on Sidestep. The weird way they're framing that, Monty, is they're making it sound like TSM are the one who generates the money, and then they're just doing Dyrus a favor, letting him on. It's like, no, Dyrus was one of the biggest streamers in the world, and TSM was getting to benefit from all their sponsors being on his stream and the fucking crazy CPM that they all made. Like, no, the joke in that scenario is it doesn't make any sense that they would be taking some of his fucking streamer. Same as the other one they said as well. Look, I understand when he was in Epic Gamer, maybe it's cool they let him live in the house. But after that, people were also going, yeah, but Monty, he did have like paid accommodations that everyone does. That was everyone in League of Legends. What a weird thing to think is like part of your payment. That was literally the default situation for every player in a team house. Like everyone was in a team house back then. That's not counted as like a perk. In fact, the joke is back then it was potentially a negative. You have to live away from home in a fucking team house with like 4 other players, like some nightmare solo queue blunt rotation, and just fucking spend all day with your teammate. Imagine having to spend all day with your jungler if you're a top player. Like, mate, I can barely handle living 20 minutes with this motherfucker. I have to like see him get the fridge as well after this guy griefed me. Like that's a fucking downside of your job, not a perk. That's not good.
Yeah. So I don't know. Certainly there were, I'm not going to say that there weren't benefits to your popularity from being on TSM and being part of that environment. Because I mean, clearly, like, we can say that people like Dyrus and the Odd One would not have had as big of streams if they weren't on TSM. So the TSM brand did have value and, certainly, prop them up in terms of popularity and set them up for success on those streams. But I just thought that people's reaction to that was very weird because it's also insanely weird that he would not have been paid. I mean, a question that you should obviously ask.
What they tried to do, Monty, is they tried to make it sound like 2012 and 2013. 2012 was when Dyrus joined TSM, if people don't know. They made 2012 sound like 2002, Monty. You know how they were like describing the esports?
Yeah.
Like, the joke is it was already mega established by then. Like, League was one of the games that went huge, obviously. You guys were making it sound like it was the early days of like Counter-Strike or something. Like, hey, just to get a salary is good. And they pay his travel and hotel fees. Like, what are you talking about? You're like 10 years out of date, you boomer.
Yeah. Whatever. I do think it's a little bit odd, but I mean, those times, like, he wasn't paying for his accommodation. And my real question, Thorin, is does he own part of TSM? Because I think that's the real question you ask.
That would be an interesting question.
If he wasn't paying salary, because you also have to remember that another expectation of being on TSM, and this is very crucial to explain to people who came in later, is that the pro players who were on the team were required to write champion guides for solo mid.
Oh, in the early days. Yeah, sure.
So this is pre-LCS, obviously. Yeah. But part of the job, which apparently Dyrus wasn't getting paid for, was that to be on the team, he had to create guides of how to play Singed or whatever for solomid.net. They were expected to be content creators for the website.
Are you ready for the joke, Monty? Obviously, the worst part about this is Reginald wasted the most layup dunk he can do on anyone in history, which is when Dyrus was annoying him, he could have said, Dyrus, I don't pay you to talk because I don't pay you. Pretty good, right? And if he talked back to him, there you go. It's a good one.
Dyrus is a huge guy. I don't know why he didn't just deck Reggie.
You know the saddest thing about that whole scenario is, like, in a way, to rewind back to the talent conversation, Dyrus to me always was the worst example of Stockholm syndrome. Because what's sad is I actually like Dyrus. Like, the sad thing is, to me, he is a fucking pull and a half. He reminds me of that character from the classic 80s movie, The Never-Ending Story. The guy who's like that rock biter, that really cool guy who's sort of hanging out with his friends, like, I had such these big hands, I couldn't keep the things I loved close to me. He has like a tragic quality to him, he's a simple guy, but he's got this like purity to him, his purity of spirit, as it were. And then to see someone like that just twisted up by the Machiavellian demons of an idiot like Reginald, by the way, and Riot, it's so sad. And at the end, just like all the LEC talent, they all just come back like, well, it's not their fault, they're good guys trying to do what they can. It's like, I can't handle this is doing my head in, mate.
Yeah, I mean, if Reggie was a good human being, what he should have done in that scenario is, if he's not going to pay his players and he's going to force them to write guides for solomid.net and they're going to be streaming and creating his brand, they should at least own part of that brand. Like, shouldn't they have some level of equity in the company?
Basically, my problem is Dyrus is Prince Harry and Reginald's Meghan Merkel. That's my basic. To summarise with a topical reference, there you go. That's my problem with that scenario. He's ruined him completely. He's destroyed everything he's done for. So it's over now.
All right.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.